Good afternoon. My name is Ala McCoy. I am Director of Startup Support at the University of Maryland's Ventures. And I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you who joined us today at the next installment in Startup Fundamentals Workshop Series, both our live webinar audience and those watching a recorded version on our Startup PMD YouTube channel. This workshop series is offered by Ventures and Maryland Technology Enterprise Institute at the University of Maryland. To everyone attending a live session, please feel free to submit questions using the Q&A function. You should find it at the bottom of your screen. This session is recorded, will be posted on our Startup PMD YouTube channel. So if you wish to remain anonymous, you can do so by clicking the Submit Question Anonymously option. So today, I'm very pleased to welcome our Ventures team of innovation managers. I will let them tell you all about what Ventures does, how they can help you, how you can work with them. And to begin this session, I will ask them to please introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ala. Thank you all for attending. My name is Hemi Chopra. My area of interest and sort of expertise is in the life sciences and some medical devices. I've been in this office for about 5 years or so, and I have had the pleasure of working with some of you, and I hope to work with others too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mark Sullivan, and I've been an innovation manager here at Ventures for about 4 years. My background is as a patent attorney, and I handle inventions in the physical science area with some kind of concentration in all things quantum.
Hi everyone, my name is William Klute. I have a background in polymer chemistry, also an innovation manager, and I focus mainly again on material sciences and physical science innovations.
Hello everyone, I'm Ashwin Ramanujam. I've been an innovation manager with the Ventures office for over a year now. My background is in chemical engineering, and my portfolio usually deals with physical sciences in general predominantly, and anything that has to do with diagnostics and wearables. Now, it's also branching out to deal with software and copyright. Thank you.
And hi, good afternoon. My name is Barclay Satterfield. I am the newest addition to Ventures. I joined about 4 months ago. I'm a chemical engineer by training as well, and my portfolio runs the gamut from some robotics to some quantum sensing and also software. So looking forward to this. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Deering, also an innovation manager here. I've been with the College Park office for 3 years, and before that I was at Johns Hopkins doing tech transfer for 11 years. And my background is biomedical, engineering. Since I've been at College Park, my portfolio has been real broad, extending to agriculture, battery technology, and many different kinds of devices. So I'll be hosting this presentation, and I'm glad you all could join us. Let's get started.
So while Andrea is loading the slides, I'd like to, first of all, thank you to all of the innovation managers who took your time and to prepare the presentation and who will be here. As you can see, today we have most of our innovation managers here in the room, not all of them, but please do feel free to submit questions all throughout the presentations, and we'll be able to stop the presentation and ask answer your questions. So please use the Q&A function. If you can't find it, please use chat. So thanks.
Okay, let's get started. Thank you again for joining us. We have a group of innovation managers here in the Ventures office at University of Maryland College Park, and we are responsible for assessment of innovations, inventions, intellectual property, all names for the same thing that comes from our research at University of Maryland. Determination of the marketability of the inventions and appropriate intellectual property protection, including patents. Negotiation of terms and preparation of draft license agreements with companies that can take our innovations through commercial development and get them to the public. I have a science background and intellectual property and business experience, and my colleagues here have a kind of diverse bunch of backgrounds with various combinations of science, engineering, business, legal qualifications, and experience in universities and in industry. We work in the UM Ventures office on the College Park campus. As you all probably know, there are 40,000 students, $700 million in research in 2024. And in that year, we had about 175 invention disclosures and 280 patent applications, 60 US patents issued. So that's an overview of what our office does. We are ranked 22nd, that may be a year out of date, among universities in the world for granted patents. And we're competing against large conglomerates like University of California. So that's pretty good. Broadly speaking, what is our role in the university? We have a lot of roles. We support faculty/student innovation, entrepreneurship, and industry engagement. We protect University of Maryland intellectual property. We start companies, secure investment, and create jobs. We provide experiential learning opportunities for students. We generate revenue from licensing to companies. When they make profits, some of the profit comes back to the university. We are available to attend department seminars and lab meetings to meet with faculty, postdocs, and students and talk about what we do and what they are doing. And overall, we try to drive University of Maryland impact. The university owns intellectual property under the IP policy of the university. And this says that as a condition of employment, UMD owns the IP with the exception of scholarly works like faculty lectures and books. Researchers have an obligation to disclose new intellectual property under the policy and as a condition of research awards. And the policy also governs how net income from any licensing of intellectual property is distributed. 50% goes to the creators. That's the inventors, the faculty, and sometimes students. 25% goes to the department of the creators, and 25% goes to UM Ventures. So that's a pretty generous income share to the inventors, more generous than a lot of universities and much more generous than companies, which don't give their employees any share of income from their intellectual property. And the goal is to, if a company takes our intellectual property, makes profits off it, some of that profit should go back into research at University of Maryland. So here's a summary of UM College Park's research translation activity and our success over the years. Since 1975, over 4,000 inventions, over 1,000 patents, 747 license agreements between the university and companies to develop technologies for almost 1,500 technologies, and 47 million about in licensing revenue. So here's what I'll be talking about today. First, what is intellectual property? The invention disclosure process. Number 2 should be marketing strategy. Number 3, licensing to companies. Do we have any questions at this point? Nothing?
I don't see any questions.
Okay. So to give, this section will be a broad view of what intellectual property is. How do I know when I have an invention? Our inventors are doing research. They're looking to solve problems. And inventors who come to us with, for example, a patentable invention, a new device, or a new medical therapeutic, often describe moments that led them to see a problem differently. So they had a novel approach. Inventions have to be something that can be sold as products or services for us to pursue a patent. It's not just the idea. Others must be able to learn how to make and use it. And the how is essential, not just the what. So contact UM Ventures if you're unsure. We love to hear from our researchers with questions and sending us a write-up of a new discovery or an invention and saying, is this anything? And we'd be glad to look at it and give you advice. Types of intellectual property, the patent. A patent costs a lot of money. We have to pay lawyers to prosecute it, and is useful if we want to exclude other people from practicing the invention in order to have it developed for public use. A copyright can be software and written instruments like questionnaires. This is not expensive at all, and we do a fair amount of licensing of copyrighted materials. And there's various kinds of tangible material which we can license without patenting, where the material itself will be transferred to the company that's going to use it. Again, contact us when you have a question. I'm going to go into patents a little bit more because there's a lot of law around it and because there's a lot of value to patents. The 3 criteria for an invention to be patentable with the United States government are novelty, utility, and non-obviousness. That's to say, the invention has to be new. It can't be previously known or publicly disclosed. It has to be useful. It has to have a practical application or function. And it has to be non-obvious. It must not be an obvious modification or combination of existing technologies or ideas. Obviousness is the most common rejection from the US Patent and Trademark Office for patent applications. The invention may be novel, no one ever described it before, but a knowledgeable person would predict that it would work based on what is already known. So for example, if no one had ever put hinges on the left side of a door, the door would be novel, but the invention would be obvious based on doors with right-sided hinges. And this is the kind of thing we talk through when new inventions come in. If we were to file a patent application, how would we argue novelty, utility, and non-obviousness? When to patent? We won't file a patent application the minute an invention disclosure comes in. We need to see that the idea has been reduced to practice, so proven, it's not just an idea. It can be described in sufficient detail so that anyone reading the patent application would be able to replicate it and use it. And we need to make sure that there is market value. So patents are different from scientific merit. Deciding to patent is a business decision that's driven by commercial potential. And that's because the goal of the patent is to enable commercialization, development by a company. And in order to do that, we need to assess commercial potential and see that it's there. Again, UM Ventures is here to answer those questions. Contact us if you're not sure. What does a patent look like? Basically, we write a patent usually from a scientific manuscript. There's an abstract, there's a background on why the invention is important. There's a description, examples, which are figures showing data. The more data, the better. And unlike a scientific manuscript, there are claims which define the elements of the invention and determine the scope of protection under patent law and whether someone practicing the invention is infringing. And just to look at an example patent claim, this is how we lay out the novel elements of a patent and define the invention so that if someone else is practicing it, we can point to this claim and say, you are infringing. And in this case, we're talking about an apparatus. A patent can be a device, a compound, and in some cases, an algorithm. This lays out the elements of the invention as an apparatus comprising a bottom insole, a top insole, force sensors in between, and a processor which determines from forces on the insole a pose of or abnormality in the limb. So this is what we call our smart 3D insole that predicts osteoarthritis in patients. Any questions now? So moving on to the invention disclosure stage. The invention disclosure form can be found at the UM Ventures website. It's a form that you fill out and email to our UMD Tech Transfer email address. It's coming soon to the Koali Research Dashboard, which our inventors are happy about, we're even happier about. It's going to be more efficient. For an invention disclosure, we are looking for as much detailed information as we can get on the invention. Are you aware of companies and specific contacts at companies that may be interested in licensing the invention? We're very interested in public disclosures because there are restrictions on filing a patent application after it's been publicly disclosed. This includes precise dates of disclosure, either in a publication in a journal, online, or in a oral presentation. And can you give us a description that's enabling and would teach others skilled in the art, as knowledgeable as you are, how to make and use the invention? The what of the invention may not be enabling, the how it works is enabling. So when the invention disclosure, this is your first contact with our office is the invention disclosure. It introduces your invention to us. And when it comes in, it's assessed for patentability and for commercial potential. I'm going to focus particularly on patentable inventions here because it's a little simpler with software and other copyrighted inventions, tangible materials. But we do a whole lot of that. That's maybe half of the work that we do here. So not to say we only are interested in patents. When we receive the invention disclosure, one innovation manager takes on the technology, and that innovation manager contacts the inventors for a meeting. We're particularly concerned about when publication will happen. We need to know the funding for the invention, for the research, because we have to report to the funding agency. And we want to talk about where the invention is going and what the researcher's goals are. Once we have all that information, the innovation manager will do IP and commercial assessment to get an idea of the market potential and patentability of this particular technology. And then we'll decide, does it make sense to go ahead and file a patent, invest in patent prosecution? Do we want to go another way? And we'll communicate this decision to the inventors and, of course, to the funding agency. The invention disclosure consists of the description, commercial potential, competition and potential manufacturers. So we're interested in any companies that are active in the area, and whether the inventors are interested in doing a startup company. That's something I won't get into a whole lot here because that's Ala's area, and she has her own presentations on startup companies, how they work, what the resources are. But we do a lot of startup companies through our office. Mythbusters about inventions. Inventors will not stop you from publishing anything. We will advise what publication how that might impact potentially patenting your technology. What would be a great place to publish, to reach out to potential licensees. But we will work around any publication needs that the inventors have because publishing is a mission of the university. Inventors will not license your innovation to a company without your knowledge. The innovators are involved every step of the way with patenting and licensing. And disclosing to UM Ventures, filing a patent application, this does not impact your research in any way, hopefully positively. You can continue your research in whatever direction you want. And even when it's licensed to a company, we have safeguards all around our company licenses to make sure that the company's commercialization plan doesn't restrict our inventors' research in any way. Submitting an invention disclosure is just notifying this office that you've done this work. It doesn't mean there's any IP protection. It does not constitute a patent application right away. And an idea by itself can't be patented. So you can have your great idea. We'll talk about how to reduce it to practice, how to show its utility. We generally don't file patent applications without data. And we do file patent applications on maybe 50% of our inventions that come in. So the filing decision is one based on commercial potential and our budget as well. The first step of assessing patentability is done by the innovation manager. Working with the inventors, we identify the elements of the invention, and we look at the patent landscape to see what else has been described by other inventors. Our researchers are generally aware of the scientific publication landscape, but maybe not so much the patent landscape. So we have the technology to look through all patents and applications that have been published, and often we find something that is a similar idea described, and we will come back to you and say, what are we missing here? What elements are novel? What further work could you do to prove novelty over what's already been described by others? We can note competitors through this kind of search as well, identify potential companies that could license the technology because of their patents, and basically figure out how we would identify claims for the patent application that would describe the invention in a way that's going to be as broad as possible, cover as much as possible, and as valuable, commercially speaking. The next step, or another step that we take, is to think about who's going to license this. Is there going to be commercial interest in licensing the invention? It can be a great idea, but if it doesn't fit into the marketplace, then a patent's not going to do anyone any good. So the inventor generally has a really good sense for the commercial value of the invention. And we work with you and also identify potential licensee companies, reach out to those companies, and see if we can get some kind of assessment of the technology from the market. And our market, our customers, are companies that would license the technology. Additionally, if a startup is a suitable way to go, a new startup company, can it access the resources needed for success? So a patent costs at least $20,000 and years of effort. A startup company, in addition, is going to need resources for space, for licensing software, for salaries, for materials, for manufacturing. And we are here to talk about where the resources can come from and how we can help you. For software, as opposed to things that we want to patent, software can be protected by both patents and copyright. For copyright, we need to identify who are the authors. It can be a lot of authors. It can be authors from different institutions, and we can manage that. And always we ask, is it original work or was there third-party / open source software that was modified in the production of this? And something we've been working with more recently was AI used to write the software. So these are questions that we will ask you and work with you on. And it's the job of the innovation managers to decide whether to pursue IP protection and whether to license the technology. Will the time and money investment by the university yield a return? Just getting a patent, having an issued patent, does not equal commercial success. We have to have some way to predict if this patent's going to have value and lead to a valuable commercial product. And again, disclosure to UM Ventures, reporting your invention to our office does not equal an automatic patent. So I've described the whole process by which we work through patentability, and now I'm going to talk about the way that we obtain market intelligence and understand the commercial value of an invention. And this happens over time. If we file a patent, the patent is in prosecution for 4 or 5 years before we know if a patent's going to grant. And throughout that time, we are gathering market intelligence, trying to license, hopefully licensing, but getting more information about the commercial value of that patent. So bottom line, will a company license and develop this technology? The goal is to have this happen in order to create value to the customer, the community. So we're looking for market feedback from potential licensee companies. And we get a lot of input also from our inventors who make contact with companies via colleagues. Sometimes there's sponsored research, which leads to inventions. And at conferences, a company may approach you when you're presenting your idea and say, our company is very interested in this. Tell our office. So within the office, the innovation manager will identify potential licensee companies, prepare marketing materials, and reach out to company contacts. For each invention, we will send out information on that invention to companies that are active in the area, and we'll say, what do you think of this? Could you give us some feedback on the commercial value? Where would you like to see it go to make it more commercially exciting? And ultimately, do you want to license it? In the process of reaching out to companies and just generally working with companies and doing startup companies, it may require a confidential disclosure agreement between the university and the company entity. This protects non-public information shared with prospective licensees. It says you cannot use this for commercial purposes. You can't share this with anyone. And we also have, our office is also responsible for material transfer agreements for outgoing materials from the university, which allows us to send samples of devices to prospective licensees. Finally, after patentability and marketability comes actual licensing. A license is a contract between UMD and a company, allowing the company to develop and sell UMD intellectual property, usually exclusively. That's the point of the license. The company needs exclusive rights in order to invest in technology and know that their competitors won't be able to do the same thing. In return, the company shares its profits with UMD in the form of royalties on sales and other payments. And this is something that innovation managers do as well. We write contracts, and this is what a license looks like. A license term sheet says the university will grant permission for a company to use intellectual property, and we have certain requirements in every single license. One is that the company agrees to meet diligence milestones, so they can't put a technology on a shelf. For example, if they have a competing technology, we don't allow them to do that. We can terminate the license if the company doesn't actively develop the technology. The company may pay an upfront investment on signing the contract, the license fee, and we need to get reimbursed for any patent expenses. Other terms include milestone payments, sub-licensing fees, and we ask for a royalty on sales because that's a fair way to share money on the back end. When the company makes money, the university gets some share of that. The royalty can vary depending on what kind of technology it is, what kind of profit margin the company will have. And sometimes we can negotiate an annual fee, make things simpler instead of agreeing to a royalty on sales. It depends on the kind of technology. For software licenses, sometimes when we know exactly what the product's going to be, we'll agree to an annual fee instead of a royalty on sales. And finally, when the goal has been met, the technology has been licensed, a product has been developed, and a company is pulling in some revenue, a share of that revenue comes to the university under the license agreement, and it's distributed under the IP policy, as I said before, 50% to the inventors, straight to the inventors' pockets as private income, 25% to the department, and 25% back to Young Ventures. So over the years, which companies have licensed our UMD inventions? Of 200 recent licenses, a solid 1/3 are startup companies created by UM Ventures. That's a pretty high percentage for a university, and we're very proud of our startup group and our success with startup companies. It's a really great process here at University of Maryland. Speaking as someone who's been able to compare how the process works at different universities, and we're very proud of our startup companies. The other 2/3 of licenses generally go to established companies. A couple of examples. For one, we have a license with Oracle Corporation, which is a global computer technology company with $50 billion in annual revenues. It is a software license called COCO, Cohort Comparison, which is a visual analytic for data analysis. We have a license with a very small company called ABVAC with 4 employees located in Rockville, developing vaccines that protect against all Ebola viruses. We have an Ebola-specific monoclonal antibody that we license to them. Of the 200 licenses, 20% are software licenses with no patent. 33% are companies selling devices, and 40% are biomedical companies. Some of the devices that we license are efficient batteries, HVAC energy saving solutions. We have a superwood that is as strong as steel, stronger than steel. We have a treatment for citrus greening, which is killing all the oranges in Florida. We have licenses from agriculture for various strains of wheat and apples. Those are licensing examples. And finally, I want to talk about IonQ, which has been a real university research translation success story for UMD. So IonQ is the first publicly traded company in the quantum computing space. In 2012, we got the invention disclosure, stabilization of high voltage radio frequency signal for ion trap quantum computer. We filed a patent application and the patent was granted in 2018. Since then, a whole patent family has grown. So we've got 271 patents and pending applications. And they were licensed to IonQ, a startup company, in 2016. And this is from Chris Monroe and CMNS. So founded in 2015 with $2 million venture capital investment, IonQ went public in 2021 with a $2 billion valuation. And it is atom-based quantum computing using lasers to ionize and manipulate ytterbium atoms and trap on a chip, which is a qubit. It currently has $22 million annual revenue, and of that, $13 million is profit. So that's our startup company success story. And that is my presentation. Working with Ventures is the commercialization of technology as an extension of academic research. So our goal is to bridge the gap between scholarly innovation and real-world application. And we've been very successful in the past. By expanding the reach of these innovations, we amplify their impact for the public good. And we are here for you. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
I don't see any questions submitted. However, if anybody has any question, you can type it up. At this point, you can also raise your hand and I can unmute your microphone if you would like to ask your question that way. While we're waiting, would any, well, first of all, thank you so much, Andrea. This was such a thorough and wonderful presentation. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Does the rest of the team, would you like to add anything for your specific area of expertise?
Ala, just one thing. By the way, Andrea, excellent presentation. Thank you. I just had a question that when we look at licensing revenue, we do take out our patent expenses. So that's something that's important for the office. Just wanted to add that. So once whatever is remaining, we distribute that to the faculty and the department and us.
Yeah, very important. Yeah, if any of you work at a private institution, for example, Google will not share their license and revenue. Any other private institutions will not. Universities generally do. And at the University of Maryland, we share half of it back with you personally. So it's a great deal. Even if you leave the university, you'll still get a check coming in as long as the royalties keep coming in. So great point, Hammy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have a question. Here's a question. Would this be a relatively accurate brief summary of the benefits Ventures to a software startup? Innovation manager expertise and experience, patent, copyright, license, and help, and connection to a potential licensee companies. Please let me know if I missed anything important in the summary above.
I'd say that's absolutely true. That's a great summary. Beyond access to companies, of course, the university does actually negotiate the deal that makes it possible for the company to do commercial development and maintains the license. Part of our job is to work with existing licensees as they go through the development process and manufacturing and sales and everything else. And we continue to offer support and liaison with the inventors through that process.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Also, if it's a startup that's licensed in the technology, and if it's a team that's licensed in the technology to actually form a startup around that technology, we also offer additional access to funding to get that technology further along and to get the company started. So if it's a company started around University of Maryland IP, there are additional benefits to be had. So I don't see any more questions. If anybody would like to follow up, please reach out to me, to Andrea. Actually, would everybody here mind putting your email addresses in the chat so people can grab them? But for those watching this on YouTube, please reach out to our office and we can connect you with the relevant innovation manager. And better yet, submit that invention disclosure. And you should share them with all attendees.
I don't think there's an all attendees option, Ala.
Everyone. It says when you say everyone, everybody can see. But please reach out to us. And we can connect you with the appropriate innovation manager and answer additional questions. No more questions? I'm gonna go and stop the recording and maybe see if anybody would like to. Thank you so much.